The idea that you can somehow look like this in your mid 40s by existing on a diet of raw meat and liver and sunbathing your balls and opening your asshole up to the sky and sucking in sunshine. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you've somehow been living under a rock and have not come across the Liver King over the past 6 months to a year, well, now you know. This guy has exploded over the last few days on all the rage websites because he finally got caught doing steroids, and like $12,000 a month is, I think, the largest I've seen. I've seen between 11 and $12,000 a month is how much he spends on HGH. And for months, he's been denying. Like, it originally, I think, started a few months back when Joe Rogan said on his podcast, there's no way that this guy looks like this without being on something. He's in his 40s. You don't get this jacked unless you're on some sort of steroids. And the Liver King, aka I believe his name is Brian Johnson, immediately did a press tour with like whoever would have him on, and was like, "That's not true. I'm not on steroids. I'm this perfect, specimen of a man who exists." And I've watched so many of his videos over like the past 6 to 8 months, not because I like who he is, but because they just won't stop showing up in my feed, whether it's, TikTok or Twitter or YouTube. Like, I'm constantly seeing this guy. And it's always this sort of train wreck scenario where you're just watching him devour ridiculous quantities of raw foods, like raw meats and livers and just things that, in my mind, we should not be eating. Like, you should not be eating like that. Like, there's a lot of danger to eating raw meat. There are some benefits I've heard, but, there's also parasites and all this other stuff. And I guess you probably don't have to worry about it if you're, buying the highest quality, or if you have your own ranch and you can, source your own meat and so on and so forth. But it's risky nonetheless. Plus, I mean, our bodies just aren't, we are meat eaters, yes, but uh, cooked meat, please. Anyway, I digress. The emails come out not just a few short months later, and he gets busted for steroid use. And now he comes out, and not only does he admit it, but then he tries to concoct this story that he created the character of the Liver King. He's like, I've been working out for years, and there's no doubt about that. The guy does put in the work. If you've ever seen him do any of these fitness videos, the guy does put in an insane amount of time and effort into working out, which is to be expected when you're jacked up on all sorts of hormones and steroid treatments that make you feel like you have to just go kill an animal with your bare hands. There's no doubt that he puts in the time, but the statement that he made, that he created the character of the Liver King because he wanted to help people who were depressed and he wanted to help people not commit suicide. Like, his press statements, the videos he has made since this all went viral and he got discovered, have been ridiculous. Um, it's an amusing scenario, to say the least. There's an article over NewYorkPost.com. His video that came out. He says, "I fully own that I effed up. I lied." Finally admitting that his stomach-churning diet of raw liver and testicles was not the secret to his eye-popping physiques. Yes, I've done steroids. Yes, I'm on steroids. He admitted late Thursday, so we're a couple days behind the times here. I'm making this video to apologize because I effed up. I'm embarrassed and ashamed because I lied and misled a lot of people. I only have myself to blame. I did that and it was all wrong. He said, vowing to be better. No, he's not. He's not. He is not embarrassed and ashamed. He's only making these statements because he got caught. If he didn't get caught, he would have continued to do what he was doing because he was making millions portraying this jacked up social media influencer, and he supposedly did it all because of trying to help people avoid suicide. Said he dug himself into a bigger and deeper hole every time he lied on podcasts by denying ever uses steroids, instead putting his almost cartoonish figure down to his 9 ancestral tenets, the primal nature, as well as his own brand of meat supplement. He said he put his own steroid use down to self-esteem issues. He says, that's why I work myself to death in the gym. That's why I do 12 to 15 blood burning workouts a week just to feel like I'm okay. And hormone replacement has helped me in a profound and significant way. Um, he also addressed the biggest criticism of all, that it helped him grow rich by bamboozling followers into buying his ancestral supplements products. He says the liver brand has had nothing to do with business success. He previously claimed to make more than $100 billion a year. He says, my companies were already kicking ass, already successful before the Liver King public figure. Now, this is somewhat true, but I think it's also disingenuous to think that his social media persona, which over the last 6 months to a year has become this global phenomenon that seem him going everywhere and being on all these podcasts and everything else. Um, it's disingenuous to think that that didn't have an impact on the business. Obviously, the businesses were doing well in the past, and they've been been around for a while. But yeah, um, yeah, it's just ugh, ugh. And he also is like thanking the guy who busted him, like, "Oh, thank you for helping bring me to my knees. Helping me, the catalyst is going to help me rise to new heights." Um, so many people have turned against him, including Carnivore MD Paul Saladino, who was a business partner who publicly declared his anger and disappointment over the scandal, insisting he had no idea his business partner and pal was on steroids despite his concern. I was misled, he said, um, and also went on to say that he's incredibly disappointed by everything that has happened. I just think this is an interesting case study in people being willing to do anything to get famous. And also the this is just another nail in the coffin for people ever trusting influencer campaigns, because we constantly see guys like this getting busted for flat out lying to people just to get a paycheck. And he can claim all he wants that, oh, my companies were already successful before the Liver King persona. But the whole time he did the Liver King persona, it was always promoting these supplements that he was selling, along with his business partner, who's upset at him now. Um, and I'm assuming the betrayal that he talked about in these videos and so on and so forth about this person he's going to cut out of his life forever is probably the person who leaked the emails somewhere down the line. But it's an interesting case study, if nonetheless, that, sunbathing your balls in your asshole and living on raw meat and testicles is not going to get you this physique, ladies and gentlemen. That's not going to happen by spreading your legs and pointing your butt at the sky and eating raw food. You're gonna have to go out there, A, put in the work, which he does, but B, you're gonna have to be jacked up on all sorts of chemicals to be able to actually look like that in your mid 40s. Um, Maybe if you're younger, I mean, looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger and the guys who were there during the golden age of bodybuilding when they were consuming literal, you know, dozens of pounds of meat on a daily basis and working out like 6, 8 hours a day and just ridiculous stuff. And they were all like, early 20s, early to mid 20s, like that's understandable. But when you get to be my age, because I'm 42, this guy thinks what, 44, 45, it does become harder and harder and harder to put on muscle and also just maintain that pace and everything else. But I think it's fascinating. You should go out there. There's some great stuff on the Joe Rogan podcast, because Joe Rogan had Derek on the other day to ask about the Liver King's PED use. It is a pretty fun podcast. Um, I just loved everything they had to say, especially considering Joe Rogan was the one who sort of started this initial chain of events months ago when he called out the Liver King and said, "There's no way this guy's natural. He's got to be on something." And that started the press tours where he was like, "No, I'm not on steroids. I'm 100% natty." No, you're not. Anyway, I don't know. I'm gonna keep doing stuff on my YouTube channel. I occasionally cover stuff like this, even though my channel is dedicated to like pop culture and fantasy and science fiction and video games and stuff. So if you like this video, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, support the channel if you can. Membership, super chats, and super stickers and all that good stuff. And I'll see everybody in the next video, whether it's a controversy or otherwise. Peace.